Here we need to find restrictions on x, and in mathematics what that means is the values that our variable cannot be. So when we have fractions, that means that we cannot allow our denominator to equal 0. That is a big no-no in math. We can't divide by 0. If you look at the left equation here, our denominators include x twice, and the last denominator does not include x. That means we don't have to worry about this guy at all. 3 can never equal 0, so don't worry about that. Instead, what we need to do in order to find the values that will make our denominator 0, let's force our denominator to equal 0. Let's set x plus 1 equals 0, solve for x, and then we can see by simple math that x equals -1 will make our denominator 0. If we plugged in -1 in for x, right here, we'd get a denominator of 0, and we can't have 2 over 0. That means one of our restricted values here is -1. Similarly, we can do the same thing for the other denominator. We'll say x minus 7 equals 0. Add 7 to both sides in order to solve for x, and get that x is 7 will end up being our other restricted value. The way that we write this final answer is that since it's restricted and x cannot equal these things, we write it, and I'm doing it up here, I'm running out of room here. We're going to say x cannot equal -1 or 7. And that's how we write our final answer. In this in this right-hand equation over here, it's a little bit more complex because it involves higher level factoring. If you forget how to factor things like the 3x squared minus 11x minus 4 and the difference of squares, x squared minus 16, please check out the previous videos in the prereq section on factoring. Okay, first things first, we need to factor this guy right here. Two numbers that multiply to -12 that add to -11. Those two numbers are -12 and +1. So I'm going to rewrite that in 4 terms. 3x squared minus 12x plus 1x minus 4. And going through on that, factoring by grouping, out of these first two terms I can factor out a 3x. I'm left with x minus 4. I need to get x minus 4. Again, you need the same thing in parentheses when you factor by grouping. It looks like I just pulled out a 1. So our final factors are 3x plus 1, the stuff on the outside of the parentheses, and x minus 4, the stuff on the inside of the parentheses. Now we're at the stage where we were in the first problem. Now it's a lot simpler. All we have to do is set each one of these factors to 0. That will force our denominator to be 0 and allow us to find those restrictions that we're looking for. The solving is the straightforward part. We're going to subtract 1 and divide by 3. So -1/3 is one of our solutions, or our restrictions in this case. Adding 4 to both sides. And a lot of you will be able to do this in your head, I hope. So I'm just writing it all out so you can see it. Alright, so far our restrictions are -1/3 and 4. This next one over here, x squared minus 16, this is a difference of squares, and we know it's going to factor into x plus 4 and x minus 4. Alright, setting each one of those equal to 0, we're going to obtain -4 and +4. Alright, we have a repeat. Our repeat offender here is +4, so we only need to list him once in our final answer. And that's how a lot of math goes. You don't need to write a solution twice, really. Alright, x cannot be, I'm going to write it from least to greatest. X cannot be -4, it can't be -1/3, and it cannot be +4. So those are our 3 restrictions here.